Hello everyone, I'm Jack and I'm back, and let me update you on the latest. So this is the front end I made off of my splash mold, and things didn't work quite like I'd hoped. So what happened is I sprayed the mold. I ended up sanding it because it had some issues and I knew I could straighten them out in the mold. So I went ahead and did that. And then I put on semi-permanent mold release. Then I sprayed on PVA. Then I sprayed on paint. I sprayed on primer, gray sandable primer, and then I sprayed on black, what am I trying to say? Oh, black primer. And I was going to use the black primer as a guide coat. And after I saw how nice it came out, I went, there's no reason to do that. So then I sprayed it with semi-permanent mold release, and PVA. Well, when I went to get the parts out of the mold, it wouldn't come out of the mold. It was glued into the mold. So initially I thought it was the edges that were glued, and I knew that because I left my edges rough. But I did spray them heavily with PVA in an attempt to alleviate that concern. Well, when I went to get them apart, they wouldn't separate. So I tried prying and all of that stuff, and I actually flooded the area with water. Once I got it open, a gap open, then I flooded it with water. Still didn't help. Well, PVA is supposed to be water soluble, so I couldn't figure out why that wouldn't work. Ended up just using brute force and getting the two pieces apart. When I got them apart, I found out it separated in between the two layers of primer. So the PVA stuck to the part and the PVA stuck to the mold. And I didn't realize exactly what was going on until there were some rough areas. Remember, this is the one that had all of the alligatoring. And so I said, oh, I'll just sand all the alligatoring off. So I did. And it did what I expected there. But when I did that, as soon as I hit the sander to it, it sanded through the primer, and suddenly I started seeing PVA there. Now, if you look, some of the PVA did come loose, but not all of it. There were other parts that were stuck significantly. So it's the wax that's what the combination of wax and PVA that does it. It's not just the PVA. So anyway, I thought I'd give you a heads up. I'd run into that in the past, but others had convinced me that what couldn't possibly be the case. Well, it is the case. So as much as I hate waxing, it looks like from now on I'm going to be waxing my molds before I do anything. Now the other part, I think I waxed it, the other mold. Not positive. I'll have to go look at my previous videos and see, but anyway, from now on I will. All right, so I ended up hitting it with 80 grit because this was pretty rough, and I just went ahead and said, screw it, I'm gonna sand the whole thing with 80 grit. So you can see I sanded actually through the gel coat. It was black. There's some places where I didn't sand, and again, there's where the PVA and primer is. So when I scrape it off, that's PVA underneath there, and it should have just washed off. This thing's been washed a bunch of times. All right, so I went ahead and said, well, as long as I'm doing it, I got my DA with 80, flattened everything and got it pretty close to flatten. I mean, you can see areas right there. There was a bump right there, but this is where the hood was. And so I expected that. Same thing here. That's where I had taped edge. So anyway, not a big deal. One of the other things is there's a dip right here. Okay, I can't figure out why that dip's there. The dip is not in the mold, so it's possible, I guess, that maybe I did that when I was prying it out of the mold. But this stuff is almost 1/10 of an inch thick. I'm shocked that I could put enough pressure on it to do that. But then again, I was using those inflatable bulbs, and maybe they could put that much pressure on there. Not sure, but anyway. All right, so now you can see basically how this thing fits. The back edge lines up here with the fender. It's too tall. The actual fender edge is right there. So this thing is sitting too high. The front looks like it's way off, but by the time I lower it, I checked, and it'll fix lowering this to the right height will fix it. So I need to lower it, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 inches. All right, so once I got the mold, sorry, the part on, I couldn't do this with the mold. Once I got the part on here, I could check. And I put the C8 hood copy on top of here and said, oh, well, this is where I would cut it to mount the fender separate from the hood. This is not going to be a one-piece front end. because of course I want to be able to open the hood, or the frunk as they call it, front trunk. All right, so once I'm going to cut this right here, exactly where the hood is. I may round this out, I probably will. I may not, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I can round it out because the front end will be separate, and I can still open and close the hood. Now, the issue I have is this thing can't go down lower. Reason it can't go down lower right now is because this is hitting right here. But once I cut this opening, it comes up here, that'll allow this fender to lower down. So that'll help a lot. If I reach up under here, it's also hitting right here. So that's going to be close. But it's literally right in this front area. All right, and let's see. This needs to go in a little bit, but I can't hold it and do all this and without doing some trimming. So if we come over here to the actual C8, we can see here's the areas that are causing problem. One is this hump in the hood. All right, but the hood's going away, or at least that hump is going away in the hood. So that's not going to be a big issue once I remove the hood. But the other areas is this crease right here may be causing a problem. I can't tell if this is going to fit into the hump, the hump in the fender, or if it's going to interfere. There is another crease right here. It's hard to see because it's in the headlight itself and it's clear, but there is definitely a hump here, and that's part of what's hitting as well. All right, so, but remember, this fender's coming off, this headlight's coming off, so those two issues should be resolved once I remove those two parts. All right, let's see, what else do we have? All right, I think that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do is do some trimming and get this thing as close as possible to where it belongs. Right now, like I said, it's just got pieces of wood here. I'm going to do a better job of trimming so it'll fit better. And then once I do that, I will make this cut where it's supposed to be. And that should help a lot as far as determining what's going on. Ideally, once I make that cut, this will lower down the right amount. I can push it in where it belongs. And you can see that it is where it belongs right here. And then it's too far out right here. It should be in another, what is it, 1.5 or 2 inches. So this moves in and down. All right, so that's where I'm at now. I really can't do anything else until I figure out start trimming and fitting and get it closer to where it belongs. And at some point, I'm going to have to take off the C8 fender. I'm not looking forward to doing that, but it's going to have to be done. And I might take off the C8 hood and see how much it'll drop, if it'll drop, and all of that. So we'll see. I'm trying to think if I could possibly open up the hood, slide this in, but then the hood hinges are somewhere around here. So I don't know, I'll have to open up the hood and see if that's possible. If it is, that would be great. I could open up the hood and that would allow this thing to slide in a little more and get a more accurate idea of what does and doesn't fit. And I might actually be able to reach underneath here and see what's causing issues. Now, the challenge is, once I make this cut, then I've lost this edge. So ideally, of course, I'd love for this cut, when I make it, to be exactly where it's supposed to be, but chances of that is not very good. If I make it too long, which would be the safe thing for the fender, then I mess up the hood. So it's a trade-off of what to do, where to trim, all that stuff. And at some point, I'm just going to have to cut it and see what happens. All right, that's all I got for now. Let me go ahead and back up and you can get a view of what it looks like. And there we go. All right, so like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate, and if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.